Hello, and welcome to Education Chat, a podcast created by students for students. I'm your co-host, Alyssa Ray.
And hi, everyone. I'm Alysha and welcome to the first episode of the new year. Even though this is a new year and there's so much we want to talk about, one of the main topics still lingering in the news that we can't seem to escape is COVID-19. And with the new releases of Omicron, Flurona, Deltacron, what even is a Deltacron? We wonder if things will ever go back to the way they were.
Now that the holiday season is over and schools and universities are trying to figure out what to do in light of the spread of this virus, what Alysha and I want to talk about today is, should schools be going virtual in 2022? This is the first time here in Education Chat where we don't have a special guest with us, but fear not, because Alysha and I have thoughts of our own. We've done a lot of research on this topic, and we realize with the recent surge of Omicron cases, this is a really hot topic right now.
There is so much debate around the safety and concern of students, staff, and faculty. And we know that everyone has their own opinions and thoughts of their own on this topic. So we would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section down below to ultimately keep this conversation going.
Definitely, we would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this as well. In preparation for this episode, like I said, we did a lot of research on the current stats of COVID cases. And interestingly enough, Alysha, I want to bring up this article that we read from the LA Times that said last week, LA County health officials recorded more than 27,000 new cases, far exceeding last winter's peak average of 16,000 cases. As it stands, nearly 1 in 4 people who are being tested are positive. The daily totals of new coronavirus cases are doubling every 2 days.
Wow. See, you know what's crazy about that is with the winter season, you don't know if you're sick with COVID or you have the flu. And I think that's what makes this pandemic so scary, is that you can't tell the difference and everyone's just so heightened and fearful. But we as a society, I feel like we have gotten so used to the fact that we are in a literal pandemic. And you can jump in if you think I'm wrong, but when people say I have COVID-19, it doesn't seem to phase us anymore. We have literally gotten used to it. And I think that is a serious problem, not to mention that the CDC has shortened the quarantine period from 14 days to 10 days, not to 5 days. It just, what's next? 1 day? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
No. Yeah, you make a lot of good and interesting points. Don't even get me started about the CDC lowering the days of quarantine, because they just lost so much credibility, in my opinion, because so many people by the 5th day, they're still positive, they're still infected, and they're still required to go back to work, and they're going to infect their coworkers, other employees, and then it's just a cycle that's going to keep happening and happening. And so it begs the question that we've been saying, like, when will we ever get out of this pandemic? Is anything ever going to go back to normal? I mean, we've been in this pandemic for almost 3 years now with no end in sight, and I think people are just tired. I'm tired. I know you're tired. Like, we're all tired. And we have to keep in mind that universities across the US are going remote for the first few weeks of the semester, which I think is smart. I think it's a very smart move. And as we saw in the beginning of 2020, when COVID first started, a couple weeks roll into a couple months, and then the whole year. And then soon, everything is online again. But as far as K through 12 schools go, we're seeing that they're still doing in-person learning. I think that raises a lot of questions and concerns for family, the students and faculty.
That is why it is important that we have these conversations. And one of the main ones that we want to have with you guys today is the pros and the cons of ultimately going virtual.
Let's start with the pros of virtual learning. I think the main thing that everyone can agree on is that there's a certain level of safety that learning from home provides students with in terms of not contracting the virus. When you learn from home, you're sheltered from all these little snot-nosed kids running around who don't know how to wear a mask, whose parents send them to school sick. But there's also a combination of structure and freedom that comes with virtual learning. Students get to learn effective time management skills, they get to sharpen their digital skills, and they get to learn at their own pace, which I think is a very good thing.
I really liked how you brought up how students learn at their own pace, because for some students, they might not excel in online learning, but for others, that might be their strong point. That might be what they need to succeed. So it's really something you have to take into consideration.
Mhm.
But in comparison to the cons, when me and Alyssa were doing our research, we realized that we ultimately came up with a way bigger list. One of the main factors that we noticed while doing our research was low income families and how they're suffering by going virtual. You don't know their situation. So, some low income families might not be able to afford internet connection, and that will ultimately limit their children's ability to access online learning. Not to mention, virtual settings, as I said, may not be suited for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. Especially in houses that have multiple children, things can get loud. There might not be like a personal designated space for students to be able to go and study in and have that alone time to focus on their work. There might just be like complete and utter chaos all around them, and that it's another big distraction. Speaking of distractions, being online, having access to like a tablet or an iPad or whatever they do their work on, it's more of a incentive to kind of slack off and go play games and go watch YouTube videos and do all these other things instead of doing their work.
One of the main things with online school is you have to have discipline. You
Yeah.
have to have that. And when you're young, you
Yeah.
don't know any better. And maybe your parents or your guardian, maybe they're working and they don't have the time to stay home and hold you accountable. So it's really up to the student. And like you mentioned, it's really easy to just click on another tab and play games or talk to your friends. It's really easy. And for
Or
some, if you
cheat on your tests.
it's so easy, yes.
Yeah.
And if you turn off your camera, the professor or the teacher will not be able to see you anymore. So who knows what you're doing behind that screen?
Yeah, another thing is like, in a traditional classroom setting, a lot of students will receive encouragement to complete their homework assignments on time. Through a screen, it's not really the same. You can't really get that individual attention from your teacher. The fact that they're isolated and they don't have like real face-to-face interaction does take a toll on their mental health. There have been studies that have shown that kids are less talkative and they lack social skills. They have social anxiety.
And there's no reason why a 2 or 3-year-old should be suffering from social
Yeah.
anxiety. You're a baby. You shouldn't be suffering from stuff like that. Not to mention, if you are 2 or 3 years old, you need a guardian present at home. You can't stay home alone. So, for example, just throwing it out there, for a single parent, they have to decide between staying home or taking care of their child or going to work. Also, if you're a child, maybe you have older siblings. Now your older sibling might have to put their work on pause to take care of their younger sibling, and then that might ultimately put their work behind because they're too busy taking care of the young ones in the house. So it's like all these factors I have to think about that you probably wouldn't have thought about when thinking about virtual learning.
Yeah, I agree. Before we started really doing our research into this, I was very much like online learning is obviously the way to go. It keeps the kids safe, all this. And then when we started diving into the cons, I didn't even think about, single parents that have to raise their kids that have to go to work. Who's going to stay home and watch their kids? Can they afford people to babysit their kids, to pay them to babysit their kids? Another thing, like we talked about low income families, is a lot of kids, they rely on those school lunches to eat. Parents can't make ends meet and they rely on that food as their only source of food. And we saw that happening in the pandemic when the schools closed down. Like a lot of schools were giving away free lunches, which was super nice, but it made you realize like, wow, people actually rely on those lunches and that's the only meals that they get throughout the day.
Yeah, their only hot meal of the day, you
Yeah.
know? And for a lot of students, maybe their school also provides them. I know some schools provide students with clothing as well. And also, school for some is just a safe outlet. You don't know if a child is being abused at home. And if they stay home all day for school, virtual learning, chances are that their abuse might increase. So it's all these things that, like I mentioned, you wouldn't have thought about.
So as you can see, there are so many factors that come into play here. What do you think, Alicia? Should students be in person right now? Should they take a couple weeks off and then come back? Like what do you think should happen here?
Honestly, I can't give you a definite answer. Even after doing all of our research. I really can't because I feel like my response at the end of the day is biased because my mom is actually a preschool teacher. So she works every day with students. And by doing that, she's putting herself on the front line. And every day I worry that my mom might catch COVID because a couple of her students have actually tested positive. So I think schools should be shut down. But when looking at all of the cons, it really makes you second guess yourself because maybe these students need to go to school. They need that escape. They need to see other students. They need to see other teachers, and they need to find some sort of normalcy in a pandemic. But at the same time, with cases rising and Deltacron, Flurona, what was the other one?
Nah, I've lost count at this point.
Right? Where were we on, like on
There's a
10?
new one every day. I don't know.
Right, knocked off our bingo card. But it's just with all these new variants coming out, it really just makes you kind of second guess yourself. But I see both sides of it. I see the pros, I see the cons, but I just can't make a definite answer.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way. It's different when you have kids of your own, so I can't really speak to that. I don't have any children. It also just depends on like everything, like do you work from home? Like I work from home, so if I had a kid, I'd be fine with them going virtual learning and staying here with me, but that's not the case for everybody. So I can't speak for everybody. I feel like a smart move would be maybe closing down the schools for at least a month into January because everyone is recovering from their illnesses over the holiday break. Then maybe trying to come back into schools, like try to integrate the kids back into the classroom. It's really hard to say.
So you have to also keep in mind that there's also a teacher shortage. There's a
Yeah.
teacher shortage. So maybe the school districts don't have enough teachers to say, hey, you're going to teach online, and hey, you're going to teach in person. They don't have that option. I was also thinking maybe the schools could just do, like you mentioned, stay online for a month, and maybe during that time they can do a deep clean. But at the same time, maybe they're just understaffed and can't afford to deep clean every single classroom.
I completely agree. I feel the same way. I think one thing that we might be able to agree on though is maybe having another lockdown.
Yes, I am so for that. I am so for it.
Yeah, I think it's just hilarious that we're still in this. I think that would solve a lot of the problems is if we had another lockdown. I know it's a little controversial to some people because they don't want the freedom taken from them.
I understand love. I can't do a British accent. But at the end of the day, keep
Yeah.
the children in mind. Keep the
Protect
children in mind. For the children, for
Amen.
the kids.
Yeah.
Don't forget to wear your mask,
Yeah.
sanitize, and keep your
Yes.
distance. If you've learned anything from this, the pandemic is real.
Even though we don't have like a definite answer here, I mean, we really have no say in what happens regardless. We just thought this was an interesting topic to talk about. We did our research and this is what we found. Alysha, any last words that you'd like to add?
I would say take care of yourself, take care of others, wear your mask, keep your distance. And if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, drop your comments down below of any other topics you would like us to cover. And I wish you all a healthy rest of the year. 2022 just started, but the topics are hot. So I hope to see you guys on the next education chat.
Yes, thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you on the next one. Bye.
All right, bye.